This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
So let's talk politics with two of the best of the best. Two friends who are giving us time on Saturday morning, which is a wonderful thing. Joe Concha, Fox News contributor. Joe's latest book, pre-order. You can pre-order it. The Greatest Comeback Ever. Inside Trump's Big Beautiful Campaign, Unburdened by What Has Been. You know, that's it. Sure. This one big, beautiful bill, one big, beautiful campaign, one big, beautiful honeymoon. And David Webb, Fox News contributor, Sirius XM talk show host, the David Webb Show. Thank you, gentlemen. Joe, I'm reading Flailing at Teflon Don in the New York Post yesterday. And, you know, it's just there's two ways to look at this. One is unconditional discharge by this guy Mershon, and, you know, goofy attempts. We're going to have Greg Jarrett on later, who's an honest lawyer, but and then Jack Smith is trying to put out a report. Jack Smith doesn't exist. He's been ruled unauthorized, so he can't have a report. So they're trying that, and they're trying to make fun of Trump and his foreign policy discussions about what are clear American interests in Greenland and Panama and South America, and for that matter, the whole Western Hemisphere. All right, try as they might to come after him, they can't touch the guy who is enjoying what I've described as a red hot honeymoon, and he's even on a greater roll today than he was 5-6 weeks ago. I've never seen anything like it. And these Dumbo Democrats, they just can't get anything right.
They have no message, Larry, and that's the big problem right now. They're running on. You saw January 6th. It was like their Super Bowl. And then I looked at the ratings for CNN and MSNBC. CNN right now, all right, and I'm not exaggerating this, has a lower audience than the entire population of Wichita, Kansas. Think about that for a moment.
How much is that?
Wichita's 396,000 people, and CNN isn't getting 350,000.
By the way, the Kudlow Show on FBN beats CNN.
Yeah.
Even though we're a business show.
Business show.
We don't always beat them, but we beat them a lot.
Yeah, no, you're 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 o'clock Pacific, and you're beating their prime time. I mean, it's amazing. And MSNBC is not too much better. So you see January 6th, then you see the Trump trial yesterday, and yes, he is the first convicted felon to ever sit in the Oval Office. Go out into the street and ask 100 people what crime Donald Trump committed, and all 100 could not define it for you, right? An accounting error? Yeah, So when you have to rely on that and no one's listening, you're out of ideas, and Trump is the guy with the big ideas right now, out-of-the-box ideas. I mean, the Greenland thing, I don't think people realize that 95% of their economy counts on exports and subsidies from the Danes, right, from the Danish government. They have these minerals, raw minerals, oil, gas that they can't drill for because they're not allowed. They don't permit themselves to. That's what Trump is thinking. He says energy is, the big baby. It's the whole ball game. And if you lower energy costs, that brings down the cost of everything. And that's why he's talking about this. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at least, hey, Donald Trump has been more active the past 5 weeks since he was elected than Joe Biden has been in the past 4 years since taking office.
Yeah, you got China nosing around and Russia nosing around. And the Arctic is a very strategic spot for the Western Hemisphere. David Webb, as Joe Concha suggesting, the Democrats look and are so small right now. You can't find them with a microscope, whereas Trump looks so large right now. I mean, the country is with Trump. In some sense, they're so with him. It's the first time in his career, I think, he's had this kind of support, David Webb.
Well, it goes even beyond that. They're not just small, Larry. They're irrelevant. And it's something that's important. Their policies have failed. The leftist policies worldwide, for that matter, are failing constantly. So they are becoming, and they should be even more irrelevant. People need to push them aside. Remember when Barack Obama said, I'm driving, get in the back of the bus? That's what the American people and anyone who's got a sense of economic sense, decency, culture, whatever it is, that's what they need to take as an approach to the Democrats, because they have perverted norms and inverted the relationship in society where the abnormal, the aberrant, or frankly, some of it just the disgusting, or even up to the point of supporting terrorists, rapists, and murders, or criminals and otherwise in our society are the ones to be upheld. Remember the mostly peaceful summer? Look at the support, tacit or otherwise, after the October 7th attacks over a year ago in Israel. Look at what's happened. We have to make a simple choice, and there are a lot of complex issues here, economic issues, Greenland, military, defense, exploration, energy, and all of that. But there's a simple starting point. Are you on their side of what is better for us as a country, for the world, or are you the aberrant and the one that should be pushed aside? And they have simply lost it.
Well, in some sense, here we have this awful story in California. Awful nightmare story of fires. And all of the mistakes, I'm not saying could have avoided the fires, and I'm not saying that good policies would have rolled back the Santa Ana winds. But you have empty reservoirs, fire hydrants that don't work. Trump pointed out, by the way, Gavin Newsom hasn't responded to this. When Trump was still president, he offered resolutions and ways and means to get water down from Northern California to Southern California. Gavin Newsom said no. The pipes are rotting. The power systems are inadequate. You can't even bring in, I heard this last night on the air, I didn't even know this. You can't even bring in power generators because it's against one of California's climate change laws. The L.A. fire chief is screaming about the lack of funding and budget cuts. This is in the name of climate change and the Green New Deal. Joe Concha, this is one of the worst things to happen. And we all pray for the people in the L.A. area to come through this because it's a dreadful thing. Lives are being lost, unbelievable property damage and homes and so forth. As I said, my brother and sister-in-law out there. But really, much more could have been done if it weren't for all these left-wing policies. And it's just burying Democrats everywhere.
It's rhetoric meeting reality, and we saw it at the border, Larry, right? And David, we welcome you with open arms. Surge the border, Joe Biden said. We welcome everybody. We could take care of these people. And then quickly reality struck, and now you see all these local municipalities, their budgets being blown up, their communities being destroyed, hospitals overrun, educational systems going sideways, all because of the rhetoric, right? The rhetoric then met reality. And it's the same thing with California, all around these climate change initiatives. You have all this water in the northern part of the state. It's called the Delta region. It's snow melt. It's rain. And if they redirected that to the reservoirs that you just talked about that are empty, then the fire hydrants would have had water. Then you could battle these things. And, oh, by the way, Donald Trump's been talking about this for years, going back to 2018, where he says, do what Finland did, right? You have to cut down trees and create these pockets where these fires can't spread. And you got to rake and you got to clear these forests to prevent this from happening. Everybody laughed at him. Well, who's laughing now, right? Because last check, the environment doesn't look all that great around Los Angeles because everything burned down. This could have been prevented. But either way, here's what I know. The Ken doll dream of a presidency for Gavin Newsom is now over. His political career is over. In fact, there should be charges of criminal negligence here because what people lost here because of what he did not do when he could have done it, Larry.
You know, boy, I tell you, I'm going to read. Here's Trump at a presser, I guess Thursday. President Trump. I said, here, Gavin Newsom says we don't need the water. I, meaning Trump, said, you need water. Your reservoirs are empty. The whole place, you need the water. That was 5 years ago. I had it all done. The work was all done. We sent it to him. He refused to sign it. And if you notice, yesterday the hydrants were empty. They didn't have any water, many of them. They said 20%, but now I just said 50%. And now none of them have water at that fire still raging. When he turned that down, I was going to give them unlimited water. It would come down, really comes down from the north, way up north, including parts of Canada. It's so much water that they wouldn't know what to do with it. It's just the opposite would have happened. And that's the reason that this happened. I mean, that's just, David Webb, that's just common sense. And now, they're saying, well, the reservoir, whatever the reservoir, L.A. reservoir, Santa Monica reservoir, was under repair. But even the routes of the reservoir were pushing the water into the Pacific Ocean when they were working in order to protect something called a smelt fish. I think I say that right, a smelt fish. That's insanity. That is the definition of insanity. You don't see that in conservative side. You only see that in the left.
The Delta smelts was a story I reported on years ago, and even before Donald Trump got involved. California and the California Water Resources Control, commonly referred to as the California Water Board, are like the New Orleans Levee Board. They're corrupt. If you read the resumes of the people involved, you will find a lot of political payoffs for a position. And unfortunately, the people are the ones paying the price. I have friends who have lost their homes, family members of theirs who have lost their homes now, whether in the Palisades, in other areas. And when I look at this, the fact is California has been on notice for years that this was simply not a good plan, that they needed to do something about it. They needed to clear the forest floor. They needed to have better land management. Instead, they played politics. So incompetence and policies combined is what turned this into the failure of the Democrat-controlled structure in California. And they don't care. Gavin Newsom faked calling the president with a woman. That's now all over social media. She's actually been on Fox News talking about this. They're all fakers. And to Joe's point, he's right. This is the Ken doll who would be president. And frankly, that should just melt away politically like it would in a fire. Yep. The people in California deserve better. And if you think about the effects of this, yes, it's in these areas, but if it goes far enough or other things combine with it, well, suddenly you could have a perfect storm which could affect the nation's food supply in some cases. So there's a lot at stake here, Larry, and tragically so, beyond those that have lost their lives, we don't know the final count, or those that have lost their livelihoods or more. Quick break.
We're talking to Joe Concha. Joe's latest book, The Greatest Comeback Ever, Inside Trump's Big Beautiful Campaign. You can pre-order it. David Webb, The David Webb Show, Sirius XM Talk Show, and both Fox News contributors. Come right back, folks. I'm Kudlow.
Larry Kudlow. From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
Gavin Newsom had an opportunity to have millions of gallons a week, a day, millions and millions of gallons come down from the north. And I was able to get him federal approval from that, from the Department of Commerce of all departments. I didn't realize it would go through Commerce. I would have thought environmental, but it goes through Commerce. I got all of the approvals, and he said, I don't want to sign it. I don't want the water. We don't need the water. I said, you need the water. Your reservoirs are empty, the whole place. You need the water. That was 5 years ago.
And it's worth noting 5 years ago, now in the here and now, at the catastrophic nightmare that these fires are causing in the Los Angeles area, the Pacific Palisades Reservoir is empty. Reported Gavin Newsom cut $100 million of fire prevention programs from the state budget. And, of course, this L.A. Mayor Karen Bass cut $17 million from the Los Angeles Fire Department. And the fire chief, Crowley, was extremely critical of Mayor Bass. Now, she was called into the carpet. Nobody knows whether she got fired or not. The early indications are not yet, but who knows? We're talking to Joe Concha, Fox News contributor. Joe's newest book, available pre-order, The Greatest Comeback Ever, Inside Trump's Big Beautiful Campaign. And we're talking to David Webb, Fox News contributor, host of the David Webb Show, Sirius XM talk show host. I mean, Joe, there's, as you guys were saying, 5 years ago, Trump's trying to make a deal with Gavin Newsom, give him plenty of water. There was no shortage of water. What there was is a shortage of common sense policies. That's what there was, Joe Concha. And I think that's one of the things that killed the left-wing Democrats, whether it was woke or spending or inflation or open borders and crime or flying illegal immigrants all around the country and parachuting them down. There's no bloody common sense in that party.
Thank you. Those are the two words. Forget about, conservatism. It's common sense that's winning right now. And I was on Sean's TV show last night, and he said, do you think that Californians are going to still elect these Democrats over and over again, the Pelosi's, the Schiffs, the Newsoms, the Swalwells? And I think in the past they probably still would go ahead and do that. I think this is a tipping point. I think what we saw here, this isn't a story, guys, that goes away in a couple of days. And then when Trump's inaugurated, we forget about the people of California like we forgot about the people of Western North Carolina. I think this is a Katrina kind of impact where for years you're going to be hearing about people not being able to rebuild their homes because they're not getting the proper permits, or there's not enough money to do X, Y, Z, or Newsom still isn't redirecting the water to the reservoirs. I think if people, especially celebrities now, are even coming out saying that this guy is incompetent and he needs to go. So I think California, I'm not saying it's going to become Alabama, but I could see it being more of definitely a purple state and possibly in play, just like New Jersey is going to be in play and Illinois is going to be in play and Colorado and New Mexico in 2028, because common sense always wins. Woke goes broke.
You know, David Webb, it's almost impossible to build anything out there because there's so many regulations and rules. I might add woke rules, cultural rules, DEI rules, regulations. You know, Democrats on the left don't like building. They want to run everything. They have strict zoning laws. The Northridge earthquake years ago, Governor Schwarzenegger, Republican, he suspended all the rules. So things could. Somebody told me last night on the show, in something like 85 days, the thing had been rebuilt. Something like that. Quite remarkable. You're not going to have anything like that, rebuilding all these big, beautiful homes in the L.A. area because of the rules and the regulations. And so what Joe's saying, I mean, strikes me, this you know, that folks going to be reminded of this catastrophe for quite a long time.
You know, back in the early days of NASA, someone famously said, no committee ever put a man on the moon. And there's something to that. California is run by a committee of interest and multiple committees of interest. So the idea of suspending regulations, not ignoring them, but suspending regulations or doing something to make sure that things can work better across even county lines or jurisdictional lines is anathema to them. They just don't get it. That is a level of, I call it deliberate incompetence, because they have built on top of it constantly in Sacramento or in other areas. And I'm with Joe. I think Joe hit on something very important, that this will have far-reaching implications because the people, it crosses all lines. Everyone in some way at every economic level is being hurt by this. And no matter what Biden in his waning days or others try to do in the Democrat Party to make it seem as if they're all in, they can't take away overnight or over years what has happened to businesses, what has happened to people, what has happened to frankly, look at what's happening to the land, the animals, the entire biome, to use the word, of California in these areas is being destroyed.
What about the smelled fish? I guess they're being destroyed too. But basically, I think you're going to have, at the local level, state senators, assemblymen, L.A. city councilmen, and eventually a new mayor. That's probably all going to change. Joe Concha, thank you very, very much. David Webb, thank you ever so much. Folks, I'm Kudlow. Take a break, do some economics on the other side with John Carney and Joe Lavorgna. Stick around. The Trump effect on jobs.